What up, Snickerdoodle? I'm Leon, the Paperback Maniac, here with a little December paperback horror update. I had been accruing a few titles online, and then today, again, I decided I would go a little shopping. I mean, 'tis the season, right? So I headed out to a couple of places after having, I must say, a luxuriously slow morning. A morning in which I ate a bunch of carbs and sugar. If you guys had any idea the sheer amount of junk food staring at me right now, I mean, maybe I can try to show you guys. Yeah, this, I don't know if you can see this. I guess these are the perks of being a teacher. You get a lot of candy and chocolate and Starbucks gift cards around this time of the year. And yeah, it's very sweet, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna get fat. I mean, if I start gaining a lot of weight in the next few weeks, you'll know why. But had some peanut brittle, had some cookies, grabbed a coffee from Starbucks. I only go there when I have gift cards, and just kind of hung out here. I did catch finally the new recently released Leprechaun Returns, which I highly encourage people to check out. That's a movie that I had been looking forward to ever since I heard it was announced. Ever since I heard who the director was, I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. And it was. It was a blast. Just a fun romp, good old practical special effects, great gore, really of a piece with the kinds of books that I discuss and show off in this on this channel. So if you like that kind of stuff, definitely check out Leprechaun Returns. But I watched that, and then I figured, what the hell? Let me go out and see what we can find. So I went hunting. The first place I went was the book rack. But you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to show the online stuff first. So without further ado, let's get to it. As you can see, I'm in full holiday mode here. All right. So first book we're going to take a look at is Moorstone by Bernard Taylor. This book was originally published in hardcover under the title The Moorstone Sickness. This paperback edition from St. Martin's Press came out in 1988, and what just a glorious cover, right? I've been a fan of this cover, and I've wanted this edition for quite some time. Earlier, I had checked and I just couldn't find it, or couldn't find it for a decent price. But yeah, this is just looks beautiful, and I've heard some good things about the novel as well. So yeah. Definitely one I'm looking forward to checking out. Okay, and then another title from St. Martin's Press. I'm really stoked about this one as well. We've got Dagon by Fred Chappell. This is one of the few St. Martin's Press books that has a die-cut cover. It may be the only one that I'm aware of, but pretty amazing inner artwork there. I mean, that's just fantastic, right? I love that. I really get a kick out of that. But this book was actually first published in 1968. St. Martin's Press did like to reprint some older horror titles. This edition came out in 1987. And apparently it's got like a Lovecraft thing going on, as you can clearly tell from the title and from that. So yeah, this should be interesting. Okay, next up, we've got a book called 602 by Mark A. Clements. This one was put out by Popular Library, and it was published in 1988. I've heard good things about this. It does look, I love that cover. It just looks really cool, and I am a fan of the Popular Library titles from kind of like the late 80s. So yeah, this should be an interesting one. Next up, this one was a long time coming. Finally got around to picking up a copy of The Amulet by Michael McDowell. This was Michael McDowell's first published novel, I believe, put out by Avon, who put out most of his stuff, and it came out in 1979. And that is a really amazing cover, right? Yeah, I'm really curious about this book. It's his first, and from some people whose opinion I trust, they say it's one of his best. So, all All right, and finally, the last online title I'm going to show you guys. Really pumped about this. This was also a long time coming. We've got The Hell Candidate by Thomas Luke, aka Graham Masterton. This was a book he published under this pen name, and this came out. It was put out by Pocket in 1980. Quite a notorious title. For a long time, this thing was just going for like stupid money online. Like you couldn't find a copy for under $100, and so I was never like gonna pay that. But recently, you can find it for a lot more reasonable prices. And so when I found a copy for like 20 or under, I was like, all right, jumped on it. I'm very curious about this book. I've heard, I've heard good things generally, and pretty topical, I guess, these days. But yeah, I'm very eager to read this one. I'm eager to read a lot of Graham Masterton books. I almost have like so many, it's hard to decide which one to read next. I might go with Mirror. I don't know. But if you guys have any suggestions for Graham Masterton, I've read a few. But anyway, okay, now for the shops. So the first place I went is the Book Rack in Arcadia. I've talked about them a couple of times. Really great shop. I mean, their horror selection is small. It's basically just an end cap. But every time I go, despite the the small amount of books, I always end up finding something, and they always have like just really good quality. Like they don't accept like trashed books. So there is the bookmark to the Book Rack. Definitely check it out if you're in the Southern California area. And the first one, pretty apropos, I guess, for this time of year. We've got Santa Steps Out by Robert Devereaux. This edition was put out by Leisure in 2000, although it was first published in limited edition hardcover in 1998. I am a big fan of Robert Devereaux's. I've been a fan of his ever since I read his first published novel, Deadweight, the reprint of which I have right here. Just a quick note on Deadweight. If anyone is into like this was the first, I think, like really extreme horror novel I ever read. Like even before I got into like the early like the 80s splatterpunk guys, this is just a really outrageous book. It was first published by Del Abyss, and I do have the Del Abyss title somewhere, but I was able to find this one, and I actually like this cover better than the original Del Abyss cover, but just insanely gory, very disturbing, but also funny. It has like a real dark humor to it. Ever since I read this, I've been a huge fan of Robert Devereaux's, and I've heard a lot about Santa Steps Out. This is actually book one. It ended up becoming sort of a series. I think like he calls them the Santa Claus Chronicles. This isn't your childhood Santa Claus though, guys. This Santa Claus is a lecherous bastard. He's kind of a pervert from what I understand. He like has like a torrid, complex relationship with the Tooth Fairy, and yeah, it sounds pretty fun. So it sounds like a fun book to read, in the holiday season. I'm probably not going to get to it this year, but maybe in a future December or Christmas season, I'll check out Santa Steps Out. All right, next up, when I saw this cover, I just fell in love. We've got The Mind Game by Norman Spinrad, and this book was published by Jove in 1980, and apparently it is sort of like a thinly veiled look at what they call cults. Apparently it's all like Scientology, basically, and this was like when Scientology was kind of like a hot topic, and yeah, this looks really fun. But what an amazing piece of art there, right? The Mind Game. It was one I had never heard of. And then I just could not resist. Whenever I see these McCammons, this is Swan Song by Robert R. McCammon. Of course, the original Pocket paperback that came out in 1987. I have a copy of this before, but it was pretty beat up. Whenever I see one with an unbroken spine, in good condition, I just have to get it. So yeah, I've heard that this is one of his, like great, obviously epic, books. But yeah, I would really like to read this. And this just what an amazing cover. I've always loved that cover, and to find it in such good condition for an original, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I was happy to find that. And then finally, last place I went is the Iliad bookshop in North Hollywood, the best used bookstore of all time. There is the bookmark for it. Always find a lot of cool stuff when I go in there. So, okay, I got a few from there. The first one is The Bog by Michael Talbot. This book was published by Jove in 1987, though it looks like it was first published in 1986. It has a die-cut cover, and the inner artwork is just absolutely lovely. Really, really dig that. Yeah, I have another Michael Talbot book. I think it's called Night Things, or gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. But he seems like a really good writer. I'm eager to see what he's all about. Okay, next up, we've got The Funhouse by Owen West. This is a novelization based on an original screenplay by Larry Block. And, this was, of course, made into the Tobe Hooper film. And Owen West is the pen name of Dean Koontz. So this is a Dean Koontz screenplay to a Tobe Hooper film. I'm on board with that. That sounds fucking cool. So, yeah, The Funhouse. This should be fun. I never knew how much I loved Dean Koontz until this past year when I finally read Dean Koontz, and he can actually be pretty damn great when he's in his, when he's on top form. So, all right, next up, we've got a book called Bloodlinks by Lee Killow. Must be an Irish fellow with that kind of name. This is a sequel to the book Blood Hunt, which I also have. I think I showed that in a previous video. But this was put out by Tor in 1988. Pretty cool little cover there of an urban landscape. So, that looks pretty fun. All right, here's one. I love these examples. One that I had never heard about, knew nothing about, and probably would never get unless I just happened to find it. This is Nightmare Country by Marlis Milheiser. And this one was published by Fawcett Crest in 1982. And it sounds intriguing, and it really, I love, just got that amazing early 80s artwork that's just mesmerizing. Really, really dig it. Sounds pretty interesting too, and from what I saw here, it looks like this person can write, so that's always appreciated. Yeah. Okay, a few more here. The next one is On Wings of Evil by Richard Lewis Newman. And this was put out by the fine folks over at Leisure back in the day. This was published in 1988. This is a Leisure one that I wasn't too familiar with. It's one that I, haven't, seen too often. But, I do love my Leisure titles from the, especially from like the late 80s. So, I figured why the hell not? That's a pretty interesting cover. Okay, next up, we've got The Magic Cottage by James Herbert. James Herbert was, one of the best British horror authors. He was kind of like people considered him the British version of Stephen King. Just an absolutely phenomenal writer. I mean, just great. I really want to read. I need to read more James Herbert, but this one is one of his lighter books, not as violent as his earlier stuff. But I've heard good things about it, and it does sound interesting. This edition was put out by Onyx, one of my favorite imprints. It came out in 1988. This version, although it was first published probably in Britain in 1986, but Yeah, I'm always, first of all, just happy to get another Onyx title and a James Herbert one that I had not previously owned. I was all about that. So, yeah, stoked to have that. And finally, you guys know that I like to save an interesting one for the end. I had never heard of this, and, I guess for good reason, but I just had to get this when I saw it. We've got Hell, a cyberpunk thriller by Chet Williamson. Now, this book was published by Prima Publishing in 1995, and it is evidently based on a CD-ROM game of the time. You see, if you're a 90s kid like me, you might remember that CD-ROM was all the rage in the 90s, and just like it was really hip. I mean, I wasn't cool enough I never had a CD-ROM, I didn't play CD-ROM video games, but they were, there was a real push for them, I remember, and with systems like Sega CD, and apparently this was a game I never heard of the game before, but Chet Williamson is a very distinguished writer of that time. I mean, I've shown a few of his books. He started publishing in the 80s and throughout. But yeah, I really like that title, and pretty cool cover image there. Very 90s, very like I don't know, like Lawnmower Man or Arcade. If you saw that Full Moon movie, I love 90s stuff that deals with like technology and like video games. Brain Scan, they're always just a lot of fun. So I figured, yes, I will get a CD-ROM adaptation, a book written by Chet Williamson. Why the hell not? So yeah, so that's it, guys. That is my December update. Hope you got a kick out of it. Hope you guys are having a good holiday season. Definitely check back next week, maybe next weekend. I should have my final book review of 2018 up. It's quite a doozy. I think I showed that. I think that Santa Steps Out. The tagline was like a fairy tale for adults. Well, this book I'm reading right now is a fairy tale, very much for adults, and really looking forward to talking about that. But should have that, and then around New Year's, I'm going to do my top 10 favorite vintage horror reads of 2018. So that should be fun. And then into the new year, I will have my next collection video, which I'm super pumped about. It's an imprint that never gets talked about, but I think should get a little more attention. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming up. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And I will see you guys later. Peace out.